Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Luis Makonza da Silva. Luis Makonza da Silva is the owner and founder of Bwiti Canada. You can find out more about Luis Makonza da Silva and his wonderful work at bwiti.ca. That's BWITI.ca. Welcome, Luis Makonza da Silva.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Now, we're going to be talking about Iboga. And before we go on, for our audience, for the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, what exactly is Iboga?
Iboga is a plant. It's a natural plant that's grown in Africa, Central Africa. Where I get it from is from Gabon, Africa. It's a shrub. The shrub is about 30 years old by the time it can be harvested, and that's when it has its most potency and it has its most effectiveness. And it's a tremendous plant, and it's been given to us. It's a gift.
So basically, Iboga is a plant medicine. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
From Gabon in Africa.
Yes.
Now
it comes in other countries. It's in the Congo and Cameroon as well, but where we go is Gabon.
Okay. Now I know that your company's name is Bwiti Canada, and as I understand it, Iboga is used in spiritual ceremonies by the Bwiti people in Gabon. What is the history behind the use of Iboga, the plant medicine, by the Bwiti people? Can you share that for our audience?
Sure. Well, the Bwiti, it's not a people. Bwiti is a tradition. It's a tradition. It's a spiritual tradition. So they were shown the medicine. The pygmies were shown Iboga, and the Iboga became their teacher. And the two amalgamated, and that became Bwiti. So it's between man and the plant that created Bwiti. So it's not one created the other; it's a joint effort. So Iboga is the teacher.
Iboga is the teacher. So is Bwiti then a spiritual tradition, or is it a religion?
Spiritual tradition. It's not a religion, because it's not someone heading it. It's not someone, because every individual within the tradition has a right to question everything. And they can get the answers through the Iboga plant, through journeys.
Now, how long have the Bwiti been using Iboga for spiritual ceremonies?
As far as we know, about 10,000 years. Could be longer. We're not sure. It's at 10,000 years, that's pretty good.
A long time.
Right.
Okay, so Luis Makonza da Silva, you're the owner and founder of Bwiti Canada. How did you come about to use Iboga yourself?
Well, I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder and major depression. So I got diagnosed with that. I ended up in a hospital. I ended up in one of the big hospitals here in Canada. And, it was basically put me on a bunch of pharmaceutical drugs, and it was brutal. Years and years of just trying new drugs just to stabilize me. And it was very difficult, challenging. And I got to the point where I was at the point of get busy living or get busy dying. And a friend of mine, she had gone down to Costa Rica to do some spiritual thing. And that's all I thought I knew about it. She went down, she did something, and she said, "You should really try it, Luis, because it might help you," right? Because I was trying to get off this medication, and that's a fight in itself. and I couldn't. And I couldn't engage in life. The pills were basically making me sterile, with no oomph left. I had nothing left inside me. So she had a barbecue, and they called him a shaman. He's not a shaman. He's a Nimi, but it's a different term, but people will understand it more as call him a shaman. He was in Toronto doing a seminar. So she invited me over and a bunch of other people and him, and they had a barbecue. So I met this guy. And he told me, I can get you off all that medication and clear your mind in a week. And like most people, it was like, yeah, right. I've been trying to go at this for years and I can't get off. And you're going to do it in a week. So I didn't put a lot of stock into it. But he said, come down. And I go, okay. Well, 2 years passed now. And, I'm working, but everything I'm doing in my life nothing is for me. It's for everyone else. I'm pleasing everybody, but I'm suffering harder and harder and harder. And it got to the point where I had some issues at work. And it wasn't that I wasn't performing all right, but I was overextending myself for everyone else. And I was just left with nothing. I was empty. And I got in an argument with my boss. I wanted to go on holidays. I actually wanted to go to Portugal for a couple months, and they got pissed off at me because I needed to get away. And okay, they had a problem. So then I said, you know what? I'm going to actually call that guy. I'm going to call that guy in Costa Rica. What the hell? So I ended up calling down, and he said, yeah, come down. So I made arrangements, got my flight booked, went down. Had no address, had no nothing. So I show up in Costa Rica at the airport. I figure someone's going to be there to pick me up. There's nobody there. So my anxiety starts going through the roof, whatever. I end up making it up to his place by chance and being resourceful and talking to people. I get there, and the first thing he says to me is, what took you so long? He goes, you wasted 2 years of your life and you'll never get them back. So, that struggle there. So I was on a cocktail of medication. I was on about $1,500 worth of meds.
Per month? Per
month, yes. With it all. Like I was on antidepressant, antipsychotics, sleep meds. I had to be on Viagra because that was killing everything. Allergy medications, like puffers, the whole 9 yards. And he said, okay, that's fine. So he goes, show me what you have. He took me up to Murray. Show me what you have. He goes, take what you need for tonight. And that's it. He goes, give me the rest. He goes, it was in a Ziploc. It was pretty big. And so I gave it to him. And the anxiety of releasing that was huge. So I ended up, whatever. I didn't sleep well that night at all. And then the next day was the ceremony. But it was at night. I had the whole day to go through that. And I was suffering a bit because, my anxiety was just getting worse and worse and worse because I had no meds. I had nothing to fall back on at this point. So anyway, we get to the time of the ceremony. We do the ceremony. And, oh my God, it was a journey like I never, I don't know if I want to go into the ceremony, but anyway, I went through the ceremony. It's about 30 hours. Lots of visions. It showed me everything. I got a full, first you have your physical detox where it cleans you out physically, which is remarkable. And that you feel right through your whole body, and it's amazing. And you clean out that way. And then it was a mental and spiritual detox. So when I came out of that, it was like, wow. I wasn't even thinking about medication. I could see clearly. My thoughts, because part of the PTSD and the depression is racing thoughts, and it's the recurrence of something. Well, that's gone because I dealt with those thoughts through my journey. Because what makes us sick is a makeup of our thoughts. And I removed them. I dealt with them, each of them. And it wasn't like I only thought it was my PTSD from I had a home invasion. And that's why I thought all this stemmed from. But I was clearly wrong, because this actually took me right back to childbirth and cleaned everything out. And it was a beautiful process. Was it painful? Yes, but it was beautiful because you have to go through it emotionally, physically, mentally, and release. So it was coming down like a file folder. One comes down, out, come in, out, come in, out. And it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful experience. And the next day when you wake up, it's like, oh my, because I'm no longer a baggage handler. So once I did that, I did two ceremonies. I did the main ceremony is the first one, and then I did a second one, which is called, they call it psycho-spiritual. They were both tremendous. So I ended up coming home. I quit my job, and I took 6 months, and I did nothing. I spent time with my kids, got to know them, because when you come back, it's like people don't know you anymore. You don't know them because they're expecting the old you. And you have to just, you got to find yourself again and how you fit back into your old life, or whether you want it. But I didn't want my old life anymore. And I quit my job and everything and just started moving on.
Okay. Now, Luis Makonza de Silva, Iboga is illegal in the United States and several other countries. Can
Right.
you explain for our audience, where is it legal, where is it illegal, and why, in your opinion, is it illegal?
Well, I know it's legal in Portugal and in Canada, and Mexico, they can work with it, and Costa Rica, they can work with it. We've been able to do work within Italy, Portugal, England as well. But yet in Canada, ayahuasca is illegal. So, and they're both great medicines, but ayahuasca is a blend of plants. So then it becomes processed, whereas Iboga is one plant. So they haven't deemed it a processed, like it doesn't become like a prescription then.
All right. Well,
why do I think it has been banned in, say, the U.S.? Because it's powerful. And I personally believe that the pharmaceutical, big pharma doesn't want it around, because it stops things from happening. If you get more people in tune with themselves, they're no longer going to have the need for the big pharma, and that's big business. It's been around a long time. It's been used by governments. It's still used by governments for their own people, but not for the population.
As I understand it, ibogaine, which is a derivative of iboga, is actually used pharmaceutically to help people get off opioids and other medications, correct?
That's correct. And that's the distinction people have with, they assume Iboga, which can do the same thing, because ibogaine is one part, but it can do the same thing with heroin addicts. But that is not even, that's like a little trailer on the back of it. Okay. Iboga is for physical healing, spiritual healing, mental healing. It's just for true connection.
So what, in your opinion, is the difference between the plant medicine Iboga and the pharmaceutical medication ibogaine?
Spirit. There's no spirit within ibogaine. Iboga is truly a spiritual journey. It's to meet your soul. That's its sole purpose. But in that journey, you gain so much more, because when you connect with your soul, you have physical, mental. It's a mind, body, and soul, which is actually the other way around. It should be soul, body, and then mind. And you have that connection. And once that everything's working as one, we're a healthy human being.
Now let's talk about the way the Bwiti people, and as you mentioned, the Bwiti, it's really a spiritual tradition. How is Iboga used in the Bwiti spiritual tradition? Like if you went to Gabon to take it, or how is it used traditionally?
Well, it depends on what you're taking it for. Most people that are taking it in the West are basically doing an initiation, which is an introduction to it. You're meeting the spirit, which is Iboga. You're meeting it for the first time, which is, for most people that are taking it, they're not even into that. They just want healing. And that's great. That's fantastic. And nor do you have to go down the path of being into the Bwiti tradition. But when they use it in ceremony, and they do cleansing rituals. They do all kinds of rituals. I don't want to get too far into that because that's a whole world that people aren't even ready to deal with yet. It's a beautiful tradition. They can do a lot of things. I work with the Masuko Bwiti, which are healers. So they basically deal with a lot of physical healing, but a lot of mental, because mental and physical are hand in hand. If your mind is sick, your body will be sick. So clean the mind, clean the body. Plus, they use a lot of different plants to heal other aspects of your life. And they can get very specific with cancer, AIDS, and stuff like that. But you have to have the right person to do that. Most people in the West that are performing any type of Iboga retreat or a cleansing, they're not prepared to do that level of stuff. You have to go to Africa for that because there's just certain medicines you can't get here.
So you mentioned ayahuasca. Can you explain for our audience what is ayahuasca and what is the difference between ayahuasca and Iboga?
I don't know a lot about ayahuasca. I've never done ayahuasca. The first plant medicine I ever did was Iboga, so I've never had to go to any other. From what I've heard, ayahuasca is a very powerful plant medicine. I respect it because it's helping people. At the end of the day, that's all we want to do is help people find themselves. It's and also from what I've heard, is a female spirit, as opposed to Iboga, which is male and female. So and it's a blend because it's basically it's DMT with the vine. I might be getting this wrong, but it's a blend of plants put together, boiled up.
You're referring to ayahuasca.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
And it's boiled and it becomes the drink form. I don't know a lot about it, so I don't want to say the wrong thing about it, but I must say I do respect the medicine.
Okay. All right. Now let's go back to Iboga in the Bwiti tradition. So my understanding is that in the Bwiti tradition, teenagers take Iboga as a rite of passage. Is that correct?
Yes. Okay. So now we're going to get to back into my journey. After I came back and I took my year off, I decided to call, because my teacher, I'm going to call him my teacher or shaman, he ended up moving back to Africa. So I contacted him, said, I go, because he had mentioned the rite of passage to me. I go, what about, a 45-year-old man doing a rites of passage in Africa? He said, yeah, come on down. So I ended up going to Africa. And I was there for my rites of passage, a full initiation into the Bwiti tradition. So I did it in temple, the way they do it, the way he did it as a child. So yes, my class that went into the rites of passage, I can't really tell you a lot because it's all secretive, but I can tell you this. I went in with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old to do, and everybody was treated the same. Everybody was treated the same. It's a beautiful experience. It's challenging, to say the least. That's why it is a rites of passage. And you have to break through mentally and physically. It's challenging, but it's beautiful. And the women do the same. And then we had the initiation, which is, taking more medicine. But they do it in a different vibe than we do it in the West. In the West, it's more of a clinical way and more one-on-one. This is like... when you're doing rites of the initiation within the temple, it's very loud. The music's intense. The dancing's intense. It's beautiful. The costumes, it's just gorgeous. And it's quite the experience. And I'm very grateful that I was able to do that. And that's where, out of that is where Bwiti Canada came out of.
So what is the difference in the way that Bwiti people in the spiritual tradition of Gabon, Africa, use Iboga and the way that Iboga is used in the West?
Well, it's used for the same thing. At the end of the day, it's for soul connection. It's been created, the platform in which it's done here is it's a little more kind for the Westerners because we can't take it as harsh as they can there because we're softer minded here. They live in Africa, they live very harsh. So they can take a lot and it's just a different game. Here we like to go on a retreat. We want a nice place. We want, beautiful furniture, beautiful views, and everything else. There, you could be doing this in the ghetto. It doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, when you're here and you do it, and we put a blindfold over your eyes because you can only see in the dark when you pop your third eye, it doesn't matter where you are, because it just becomes you and the medicine. And what, as the provider or the caregiver, as I like to call myself, more of a caregiver than a provider, is to ensure that you're taken care of, is to stay out of the way and let the medicine do its work.
Okay, now, so what do people need to know about plant medicine and how it works?
I think people need to allow the medicine to work. So get out of the way of yourself, because plant medicine is there to connect with you. But we put up roadblocks because we lived a lifetime of roadblocks. We have our souls and our self, and there's a gap there in between. So we fill it with thoughts and negativity and everything else like that. But in between, the Iboga or whatever plant medicine wants to get inside there and clear all that out so you can have full connection with yourself again. But what happens is we fight ourselves. So my biggest thing I tell people is don't think. Just let the medicine work. Allow it to go and let yourself be taken, because that's the journey. That's the true journey, and trusting.
Now, you mentioned that taking Iboga can be quite challenging. What are some of the common side effects of taking Iboga, and how can people be safe when they take Iboga?
That's a good question. First of all is make sure you're not on harsh medicines or like heavy drugs. Like if the person does not, like the person that's your caregiver or provider does not know that you're addicted to something, there is a big problem, because there is bad things that can happen from there. So communication with the person that you're having it with is very important. They need to know what is going on, because why would you lie to them? Because they're there to help you. They can give you the right dosage. Like if you've been on certain pills for so long, you might have to go really slow. But if you've been clean for a while and you're good to go, we can give you a full-on ceremony and you're going to be great. But you have to respect you, and it's what you've been eating. Like generally, the day of the ceremony, don't eat past 4 o'clock. But even the food that you eat and the day before, like nothing heavy. Just keep it nice, because after a detox, you're probably going to throw up. So what do you want coming through? You don't need a steak coming up. To make it nice and easy so it's a pleasant experience.
So what are some of the side effects of taking, when a person goes through an Iboga ceremony, what are some of the side effects of that? You mentioned vomiting, for example.
Vomiting, it's intense. Even the vomiting, you think you've just exploded, but you haven't. There's nothing there. It's more energy that's coming out of you, and that's what you're releasing. You're releasing physical, but more emotional, mental. It's a release. That's what you're getting rid of. You're going to sweat. Some people either throw up or go to the bathroom. It's nothing major, and that usually happens within the first 4 hours. So you're there for 30 hours. So that the physical detox happens in the first 4 hours, and then it's clean sailing. And then it's all mind, your thoughts, and that's how it works. It peels you back like an onion, one layer at a time. And some people see visions, other people don't. Some people hear things. It all depends. Everyone's different, but at the end of the day, the journeys seem to be the same. They're pretty consistent. Everyone just has different experiences because they've had different experiences in life. We all got here differently, but we're here.
And how can people stay safe while taking Iboga? Do they need to have a guide, or what do they need to do to be safe while doing it?
Yeah, definitely a guide. Someone definitely who is trained, because this can get sideways real quick. I do not recommend anyone taking this on their own. Not at all. Even when I do it with someone else, just because it's smart. And if you're, like this, I know there's a million sites out there that you can buy Ibogaine or you can buy Iboga online. I know all that exists. Yeah, just stay away from all that. You don't know what you're getting, for one. And yeah, forget it. Don't go anywhere near that stuff. You need to do it with someone who's skilled and knows what they're doing, because they're your caregiver, and they're going to give you the best. Because at the end of the day, there's three things that I promote: safety, care, and that equals results. Because you're not doing this for a game, because Iboga is not a pleasant experience. It's intense. It's very effective. But it's not the easiest ride in the world. Once you get through it, it's amazing. But that journey, that 30-hour journey, is intense. And people need to be prepared for that. And through that 30 hours, you want the best person beside you to help you. They know what's coming. And you want them to have, it could be just something as a bottled water or help to the bathroom. It could be that simple. It's generally more, but it could be that simple. But that person needs to know what you need.
Do you work with medical professionals or other natural health providers to assist your clients when they come and work with you?
In Canada, what they have shelved, Ibogaine has not been, Ibogaine is not illegal in Canada, but they've shelved the medicine. So any doctor prescribes it, they will lose their license. So we're not really allowed to deal with doctors. We do have, if I have hard cases, I do bring in either a paramedic or a nurse.
Okay. Now, who is Iboga for? And who would benefit from doing a very challenging plant medicine like this?
Okay, the first one, who is Iboga for? Everyone. But that's very loose too, because if you're an addict or you've had severe complications with certain surgeries, I would suggest you don't take it. Because I'll go with the addict first. If you're an addict, go detox somewhere else. Get clean, wait 6 months, and then come to us. That's the way you be. Because when you detox, especially with these drugs now, with fentanyl and all that, you need a doctor present. You need a hospital around you. Once that's done and you've cleaned for a bit and you've had some support, get that support system in place, because you're going to need it after this anyway. Get it in place and then come see us. You might have to stay for 1, 2, or 3 weeks. That's fine. But we're going to work through it, because an addict generally has a lot of baggage they need. So, baby steps. Let's work it through. And it seems to work out better that way.
Now, how can people know if they're actually ready physically, mentally, and spiritually to go through an Iboga ceremony?
Well, we usually generally, people contact us through the website. Word of mouth is usually the biggest one. They call. I usually have a questionnaire I send to them. Fill this out first. I'll review the questionnaire. I'll always reply to them, because even on the questionnaire, even if I don't like it, I still want to have that conversation. So I'll do a Skype call, and we'll chat, and at least I get to see their face and see where they're at, and see the pain in their eyes and see where they're at. And that's how I usually determine if they're ready, because I'll ask them a series of questions, and it brings it all out. When people want help and need help, they'll tell you everything, generally.
Mm-hmm. So how can a person know if he or she is actually ready to do Iboga?
If you're asking the question, you're generally there.
Okay.
If you're exploring it, you're just about there.
Okay. So when you do a Bwiti ceremony with Iboga, can you go through our audience? What does that actually entail? Like, can you walk us through those 30 hours?
Sure. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so people arrive. Usually, I ask them to be there around 6 o'clock. They haven't eaten prior to that, probably 4. So I usually give them a bottle of water and tell them to chill out because that's the water for the night. Not the night, but I don't, too much water isn't good either. But so we have an orientation. We set them up in their rooms because everyone gets their own room. If there's a question of drugs, there'll be a bag search or SSRs or whatever. We walk through everything. I tell people don't bring much because you're not going to need much. So usually like a backpack's good enough. They come, it's a quick check for us. We'll sit down, orientation, tell them, this first thing I ask them, I go, everyone's going, you've all come here, you've been on the internet, you've looked up Iboga, you've done all your research, and then I tell them, forget everything you've read. And they go, well, what do you mean? Well, because it's someone's perception of it. You're going to have your own perception of it tonight. You'll understand what it really means tonight. Because having those people's thoughts in your head is actually putting up that roadblock. So forget everything you had. After you go through it, we can have a discussion on what happened, what transpired. Then I can tell you more about my stories, and we can have a full-blown conversation here then. But until then, we can't have it. So we talk about that. Then I say, okay, now I want you to write down 10 questions that you want answered. And then, answered? What do you mean? Well, who are we talking to? I go, if you could ask yourself something and get an answer, or if you had a genie you could ask 10 questions to, what were those questions? So they go ahead and usually write them down. I go prepare for ceremony, which is just setting up fire circle, getting the fire ready. I do ingest medicine on the day of ceremony. I do it before anyone else, so I'm ahead of the pack. Then they come back and we might go over questions if they choose to. If not, that we don't. If everything's pretty straightforward, I do look at them because I place them in front of their mattresses. So we do fire circle, and we talk. I depending on what there's always a theme with people that come. It's amazing the way it happens. It's either people that I've had abuse victims, and they all seem to have the same thing, or it's rape issues, or divorcee, or ego problems, or whatever the case. There's always one theme, confidence problems or whatever. And so I address those in my fire talk. We talk about where Bwiti came from in the fire talk. And in the fire talk is where we administer the first spoonful of Iboga. And it's always the root bark. And we got to get that. It's got to get in their mouths, and it's got to get right in there. And those, they don't like it much, but that's okay. But it gets in there, gets in the pores in their mouths, and it works well. And then they have a little drink with that, and that goes down. So after that first one, we go about a half hour, we monitor them and see how they're doing. I usually get them to stand up, see where they're at physically, because it'll attack you physically first. And we keep talking, and then we start doing interaction. We start having conversations about what life's all about and all this, and they start talking, we start talking. And it's just conversation going back and forth. But there's always a set plan all the way through it. But each ceremony is different depending on the subject matter. And then, if they need more medicine, we give them more medicine. And then that'll all depend on the group or the individual. Because sometimes you'll have a person that's 350 pounds, football player, and he needs one spoon and he's done. And then you can have a 4'11" woman, tiny, and she'll need 6 of them. So we have to gauge it. No one's the same. It's not the same across the board. Nothing. But we've been trained on how to gauge it and see where they're at. So then from there, they usually let us know that I need to lie down, because we let them know ahead of time that there's mattresses there and that's where you're going to spend your night. So, and that's where the altar is. So we have mattress laying on the ground so they can't fall off anything. And we lie them down. We light a candle for each individual. And we also use that as a tool to monitor where they're at and how much energy is flowing. And they each have a bucket just in case they have to throw up. There's Kleenex, and their questions are there by the candle as well. And then we put a blindfold on their face, and then we tuck them in. Basically, they're going to be there for the next 20 hours at least. If not, they're going to go to their room after, but they're there till dawn anyway. So we light the candles, they're under there, we start our music, and we let the medicine work. And it's, like I said before, it's staying out of the way. There's a lot of people, get ego involved in plant medicine and spiritual healing, and they think, oh, how great I am, I'm doing all the work. Well, we don't do anything. Like, that's why I say I'm a caregiver. You need water, what do you need? That's what I do at the end of the day. I do more, but it's not. At the end of the day, I'm just there to help people. And so we do that. They go through dawn, and we'll journey them if we can journey them. I don't want to say too much on that, because then it's people getting expectations that they can do that, and not everybody can do that. But there's things that can happen that we can get those questions answered, and we'll work on stuff. But that's a very small portion. The big thing is that you one-on-one with the medicine and working together and finding out that you can actually process your own problems with yourself if you start listening to yourself. Because that's what Iboga does. That connection between soul and yourself is the ability to listen, because that soul's always been there. It just wants you to listen to it, because it'll guide you all the way through life.
Now, why do you think Iboga is known as the real truth serum?
Because it brings out your truth, good or bad. You can't run from Iboga. You can't hide. You can't, put a mask on. You can't. Not with Iboga, because it's not external. It's all internal. Your thoughts and everything, and that's where it works. It works in that cavity, and you can't run from it. And it's the truth serum. It tells you your truth. It tells you you're being an idiot. Why are you doing that? Why do you keep persisting, like putting your hand on the stove? Why do you keep doing that? It'll tell you to stop it. And then you're wondering why your hand's burnt. So it doesn't allow you space to lie, cheat, or manipulate anything.
Now, how does Iboga work on a physical level?
Well, on the physical level, okay. When I went through my first journey, I had actually here, November 2018. I decided to do a ceremony on myself. I did it with a friend of mine, and I thought I was just doing a physical detox. Well, what does that mean, right? I was just feeling like I wanted to clean out my body, and it's not like a detox, like a liver detox. It does that, but I wanted to detox myself. And reconnect with the medicine. But as always, this medicine, it's got a mind of its own. So I smoked for 35 years.
Smoke cigarettes?
Smoked cigarettes, yes. I smoked cigarettes for 35 years, and with visions, because this is very visionary medicine, as ayahuasca is. It showed like my soul, and it had a thing over its neck and said, Lewis, if you don't stop smoking, this is what's going to happen. And it dropped the paper, and I had a trachea in my throat. Mm. And that medicine knew to scare the hell out of me, because my uncle had died because he wasn't married, and he had a trachea from a fire in the house. And he didn't have a wife to, or a partner to say, you got to clean that. Come on, what's the matter with you? So he ended up dying in the street. But my soul knew to scare the hell out of me with that. I haven't had a cigarette since. So there's detoxes that happen in that physical element where it physically, because I physically detoxed from the cigarettes. So I didn't have like physical cravings anymore, but the mental craving was there. So what I had was that thought of that image of that trachea. And then I said, no, I don't want that. That's not worth it to me anymore. Right. So that thought killed the other thought real quick.
Now, how does Iboga work on the mental level?
It's like Iboga cleans your mind. It clears it. It clears your thought process and how your habits. Because we all have habits. We do the same thing over and over. Why does this keep happening to us? Well, because you keep doing the same thing over and over. We keep picking the same woman or picking the same man or picking the same job. But life keeps repeating itself. So it cleans you out and shows you what you're doing. And then you can have a chance because then, oh, we're going to get a different perspective here. Yeah, start looking at life differently. It's very powerful.
Now, how does Iboga work on a spiritual level?
Yeah, this is the question that most people, even the people in my world, don't say, you shouldn't talk about this. You shouldn't talk about the spiritual end because people are going to, oh, you're thinking it's God. It's not. But I'm going to tell you this. What I found was, and this is across the board, if anything, it brings everything together. I was born Catholic, raised in a Catholic family. I really had no use for like church and Catholicism and God, really, to be honest with you. But what this did was show me that there is something bigger than me here. There's something bigger at play here than just me. So I may not be into the church, but spiritually, I'm very connected. And anyone that's even Jewish people, Christians, Muslims that have come through, have all said the same thing. They're more connected because it means more. It makes sense. And the teachings, they can actually go back to the teachings and the decipher between what was BS and what's a real teachings. And that's what we use also within the Bwiti tradition, because we can question everything. Like the problem with religion is that man runs it. So when you take man out of it and then you have something that can help you search, it's honest.
Now, does Iboga and its purpose conflict with other people's beliefs or faiths?
No, like I was saying, it strengthens it. Because you get that connection with, like I now have a true connection. I look at the way, like I see the love and the beauty in everyone now. Even when it's wrong, there's a lesson there. So let's take that lesson or to help anyone. Because even when people come to us, then they're sick, as I was sick. So I don't judge those people because of what? That means that people were judging me. I was sick because I knew how sick I was. And the people come in, they're very sick. So it brings connection into people. I can't see it being bad with any faith at all.
Now, you are the owner and founder of Bwiti Canada. Is any of the Bwiti spiritual tradition written down anywhere? Do they have books or documents?
No, it's an oral tradition, which you would think in that end there would be a lot of room for manipulation if it's not written down. But the reality is, everyone that uses Iboga in the tradition can question everything and ask the medicine. So it's because it communicates with you. It's kind of hard to manipulate it because if you start saying one thing, then you can have three people. They'll go ask the questions. I'll come back with the truth. So.
And how does Iboga actually communicate with you when you take Iboga in a Bwiti ceremony?
That takes time for that to happen. That's why it's in the tradition, you have to grow within the tradition. And that's where someone that's ahead of you or cleaner than you or has the ability to communicate will help you through that. My first little stench, I was having a hard time with it. And which is very frustrating because I'm seeing people that go for the first time and they have the ability to communicate and I couldn't. but my mind was there. Like my heart was into it and everything else. But then I learned over time was listen with your ears and see with your third eye, and you will see it. And that's how it does. It can talk to you or it can show you. And you can also feel it.
So you're talking about receiving visions in your mind's eye and
Yes.
receiving information in a clairaudient way through psychic hearing, right?
Yes, correct.
And also psychic feeling, right?
Yes. Very powerful. And then also you can get it without medicine. Because once you're connected to your soul, you don't necessarily need the medicine anymore.
Right. That sounds very much like my work as a medical intuitive, because part of what I do is help people connect to their own intuition. And to me, the word intuition, you have to be in tune. And
Right.
who are you in tune with? You have to be in tune with your soul in order to receive your soul guidance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so is in my part of my work as a medical intuitive is I'll talk to people about the way that you receive information from your soul. Because some people like me, I'm claircognizant, so I'll just know things. Other people will have visions or clairvoyant. Other people will feel, they have high clairsentience, and other people receive information through words or through vibrations, and they are clairaudient. So it's all about connecting to your soul. So Louis Makonza de Silva, owner and founder of Bwiti Canada, any final thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, I think everyone out there now, there is no one path. I think everyone should try different things. Obviously, I'm a firm believer in Iboga. It saved my life. The reason why I started Bwiti Canada, because I suffered for 10 years and I no longer want anyone to suffer like I suffered. And my kids suffered because they watched their father deteriorate. So that's been my mission. The other mission of mine is to bring the cost down because it has been expensive for people. And so that limits the people that come. And I'm not prejudiced. Everyone gets sick. I don't care if you're a gazillionaire or you only got $5 in your pocket. Everyone has a right to do that. So my goal is to make it available to everyone. Is it happening overnight? No, but it will, because I'm trying to, at the end of the day, and do this on donation, where people give donations. And so the rich will pay for the poor, and that's what my goal is, because I want it for everybody. But it's not the only way. Ayahuasca's out there too. It's a great medicine. And there's other healers out there that I don't know a lot about them, but they are out there. And once I talk to them, as I talk to you and I listen to you, to what you do, at the end of the day, this is all about soul connection, connecting with self. And once you have that, it's a different world out there, because we don't no longer listen to the crap.
You've been listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio, your global feel-good radio. This is Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been Louis Makonza de Silva. You can find out more about him at bwiti.ca. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.